morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser on a Monday morning. It is Monday, and Grumpy is in full effect. It's the second cup of Grumpy because my sleep cycle is all jacked up from the vacation. I would say it's good to be back, but why the fuck lie? I'm Matutius here. What's happening?
Ow! I thought this would be the one thing you'd want to get up for after.
Oh,
vacation.
you know what this was? Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
The American Scouser part of it was, but coming back home also entails working and all that stuff, and dealing with house things and stuff. So that's the part that I did not want to come back to. Yes. Good morning, Cersei is here. Yes, Alan. I'm kind of offended that he didn't use his last charge of his phone to watch the podcast, and instead of hanging out for like an emergency in a storm. But all kidding aside, I hope he's doing well and Sparky was listening. What's up, man? We were talking about it. We went on air. It felt like we haven't done this in a long time, even though it's only been 2 weeks.
It has felt like a month, and I don't know how many people are excited to see me back, but I know many people are excited to see you back. So I'm excited to.
Up for debate. That is up for debate. Cersei's happy. He says, thank God, so he doesn't have to walk.
Okay. So we're always an excuse for something else. That's
not bad. In the ranking of things, we're slightly above walking. So in terms of demands, we're really up there.
And you need to walk for your health to make sure you live a long life. So if we're slightly above that, pretty good.
We're above life. Imagine that. There you go. We're well above.
We're looking down on everyone right now.
But yes, it's been kind of like there's a lot to go over too. Not only because we were gone, but like little things are happening and stuff. Had like quite an exciting week with Turkey in the Euros. That was kind of fun. Disappointing at the end. I actually ended up watching that game on the way home on the phone, which smart move by Angie to take over the driving duties. Otherwise, when we took that lead, I don't know which ditch we'd be in right now. But yeah, it kind of like blew it at the end. I really thought, losing a couple of those midfielders to stupid yellow cards from that Czechia game really hurt. They couldn't rotate and stuff like that. But pretty proud of the boys. I thought they did a good showing. If nothing else, we entertained the entire world with some of our games. That Austria game was a heart attack and a half. I don't know if you caught that one, but it was ridiculous. And I never thought, I didn't even think they would get out of the group. I mean, we talked about this before with Poland and Turkey and stuff like that. And I thought, it would be a challenge and it would be kind of like successful to get out of the group. To beat Austria and then almost come to the verge of beating Netherlands and making the semifinals for this young team is like, it's something to be proud of, I thought.
I think you guys should be absolutely proud of everything that Turkey did, because given the context of where we thought they were heading into the tournament, I know a couple games before the tournament didn't go so well. And so there was a very small bar of expectations, which I guess only helps feeling the proudness afterwards, right? Because if the bar is a bit higher, then maybe you're thinking, oh, maybe it could have been semifinal. But yeah, like you said, it's a younger team, parts of it younger that are only going to get better. Arda is just a phenomenon, man. I'm just so excited to see where his career goes. And then Kadioglu, I had honestly
been telling you,
never heard of. I mean, I've heard of him. He plays in Dortmund. It's not like he's not a known prospect around the world, but it just
who plays for Dortmund?
Kadioglu,
no, man. I've been talking about Kadioglu for like months because he plays for Fenerbahce. So I get to see this kid's day in and day out. I think you're missing maybe Salih Özcan, who's defender.
Oh my God, no!
I know Dortmund is interested in Kadioglu.
That's what happened. So I remember Googling his name, and then there was a little picture of him in a Dortmund jersey. Didn't realize the YouTube video was, this is Dortmund's next midfielder. It's just like, okay, so yeah, that's never mind. He does play for Fenerbahce, so I'm an idiot. No, didn't hear about him at all. But he was a fantastic surprise. I think I put that in the Discord that him and Conceição from Portugal was also a really, really pleasant surprise. But yeah, no, you should be absolutely excited for what the future has for Turkey, because I think there are some gems there, and there's somewhere to grow off of.
Yes, of course, these things don't always pan out like that. You can't just be like, oh, in 2 years, everybody's going to be so much better. You don't know injuries and stuff like that. I mean, they were missing a bunch of center backs and stuff. I know every team was missing somebody, obviously, because of the end of the season ordeal. Yeah, I mean, with Arda, man, we missed out on Arda, and I've been like, talking about it for so long that Liverpool should have just snatched him. I think he went only for like 20, 25 or something like that. And, just kind of like let him do what he did in Real and Liverpool, like come off the bench and stuff like that. And then, yeah, because his value is going to skyrocket. And I think the same situation with Cadolo now. He was only at like 20, 25. They're talking 40 to 50 now, which might be a bit too high in terms of risk. But he is also like Dutch raised. So he's like, he grew up in Netherlands and stuff like that. You have to choose in between the two national teams, and he chose Turkey mainly because I'm sure it was like a guaranteed start in that sense. But yeah, I don't know. It's a bigger risk, but I hope we don't lose out on this one because he is something. Like, and honestly, like the biggest thing was his defensive work rates, not work rate, but defensive physicality and stuff like that. And I thought he did excellent against some top players this tournament.
He reminds me a little bit of Robertson in the sense of just how he is a smaller guy, but he doesn't let you bully him in that sense. Playing on that left side too, I think that together made it feel like it could be like a little mini Robbo, if you will.
And his speeds, I think he kind of like reminds me in that sense, like Gomez, like where he might take a wrong angle and stuff like that, but he can kind of like make it up with his speed. But yeah, I mean, really good player. And the funny thing is, I mean, up until 2 seasons ago, he was a winger, like he was just a midfielder. And like when Vitor Pereira came to Fenerbahce, they made him a right back, then he was a left back. He can play both right back, left back. And I think he's played some defensive midfielder for the national team as well at one point. But yeah, it would be a good buy. But I don't know, his price really went up over these last few days. But what do you think of the tournaments otherwise? We'll start with the Euros. Happy with what you're watching? Who made to the semifinals kind of thing?
Yeah, it wasn't anything that I didn't expect. There were some shocks early on, and there were possibly a shock or two in the knockouts, but overall, I kind of figured it was going to be a Germany, Spain versus France, and then the Netherlands versus England situations. There's nothing that crazy going on there. The one thing that I think has really hurt the tournament, and I know we've talked about it, and you just we talked about in Discord, you mentioned it really briefly with Turkey, is that there should be a different way to punish accumulation of yellow cards. Yeah. Because the fact that you can have just 2 yellows in a span of 4 or 5 games and be in jeopardy of missing a following game is ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Each game should be taken care of in its own way at its own time as its own separate game. If you want to do an accumulation, fine. Do all 3 in the group stage, you get a yellow during all 3 games of the group stage, you miss the first knockout game. Or if you do like 4 out of 5, let's say you get to the quarterfinals and you get your 4th one in 5 games, fine, you miss another one. But the fact that it's just so jeopardizing for these teams. Yeah. And when you want to see the best product and you want to see the teams compete at an equal fair level, doing this is just ridiculous. I think that is what has hurt the tournament the most. I think people will say the reffing has hurt the tournament the most. There were moments that were bad, but overall, I think it's the stupid yellow card accumulation rules that have ruined it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really stupid. Everybody was talking about, Merith Demiral being suspended for, making like the nationalistic gesture and stuff, which is a comedy within itself, by the way. Meanwhile, Bellingham can grab his thing and only will get like a 1-game suspension eventually, but you'll get to play because, UEFA does not have the balls to like suspend him. But then they suspend Mary, which is odd because even though Mary was like the star of the Austria game because of the goals he scored and he played well, he was actually the 4th choice center back. What really hurt Turkey was that stupid Czechia game where the guy was like going around like just passing yellows everywhere. I mean, the scene where he goes to the bench and like shows up like 8 people, I think. It's like, what the hell is going on? And it's just, and that really hurt him because the accumulation, they lost 2 center midfielders and you could see Turkey getting really tired and not being able to put pressure on the ball. and Netherlands had time to keep lobbing it into Weghorst and stuff like that, and that's when they started hurting Turkey. But I'd like to say yellow card comes with 15 minutes on the sidelines. That's like an interesting one.
If an American said that, we'd be
yeah, no shit. Good thing it's coming from Sparky, right? Or Sparky, my friend, you have been Americanized. I don't know which one.
15 minutes is harsh. That's a third of a half, man. That's harsh, I think.
See, I would be all for it, but it's so goddamn inconsistent that, you're talking about, refs affecting the game. Now this is going to affect the game tenfold by taking somebody out for like 15 minutes. It should be like back to back or something like that, and be able to kind of like do it that way. I'm not a rugby guy. 20 minutes in rugby? How long are freaking rugby games? Or here's the thing though, like in rugby, what do you have to do to get the yellow card? Do you have to like punch the guy, or I don't know what it entails, or like they have to complain or something like that. But yeah, I mean, especially now we're like, they're so selective with people complaining. I mean, the entire Portugal team should be getting a yellow card every 30 seconds for complaining by people who are not captains.
Right.
But they do not. And then they just randomly show it to another dude playing for like Slovakia or something like that. It's like, what the hell is going on? So I would be really afraid of that, because they affect the game negatively already. I think what you're saying in terms of like not affecting them unless they're back to back or something like that would be the way to go. 15 minutes is harsh. I really think 15 minutes is harsh.
And you think about the embellishment and the acting that's going on now. If you know that getting your opponent a yellow is going to give you an extra man for 15 minutes, that's just going to increase the embellishment, right? Yeah. Everyone's going to be trying to dive and cry out for those yellows left and right, because then they know they get a man advantage for a third of a half. Like, no, I can understand maybe doing it kind of back to the injury rule, where, if you go down and you need medical attention, you stay off, let's say for 2 minutes or whatever it is, to actually stay off, so you can't fake that. So maybe if it's a bit lighter, maybe if it's between like 3 and 5 minutes, that's something to experiment. But I think 15 is just too much.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If they're going to do anything, they should kind of go back. And maybe that's a good call, actually, in some ways, these head injuries that, if you are going out with a head injury, you should really get checked out anyway. So you should go to the sideline. This holding heads every single time now, because that's the only thing that stops the game. Yep. Is so obnoxious. I mean, there are times they should be able to go back and be like, dude, nobody even touched your head. Why are you holding your head? And there should be some like retroactive stuff, because I think it is really, really getting out of control. I mean, the whole like diving and rolling around, which brings us to Copa America. I mean, I did not watch a lot. I have not watched a lot of it, to be honest with you. I did try to watch the Uruguay Brazil game, mainly to watch Nunez. And by halftime, I was like, oh, it's the same Nunez. Nothing to see here. But aside from that, I can't remember what the other game was. Colombia, Venezuela, or somebody like that. I can't even remember. It was kind of like half watching, if you will. It becomes unwatchable. I mean, the amount of time that game stops over there, it feels like an over 35 rec game where everybody is overzealous with their tackles unnecessarily.
Yeah, it can be a tough watch for sure. I think it's really nice for us here in the States because we get to enjoy the Euros. We got to enjoy them in the morning and the afternoon, and then just keep sitting on the couch just to watch Copa through the evening. So that was really nice. But yeah, the just the level of play between the comparison between both, just wasn't quite the same. And I think I mentioned that before a few weeks ago when we were highlighting, or we were previewing the Euros and talking about, like, I said I don't know if it's just because it's what I'm used to, but for some reason, the Euros for me always show a little bit more quality because the best teams in Europe against the worst teams in Euros, at least, it's still a watchable game for the most part. Whereas if you start watching the best sides in South America against the weakest sides in, let's say, North America, it becomes really unwatchable. And then even when you have two top teams like Brazil and Uruguay going at it, you just have pretty much a case of who wants to hurt the other one the most. And, for some, that's an enjoyable experience. For others, you're just hoping that your club players get out of there with both legs. So, yeah, thankfully Nunez was subbed off before he did anything worse, because there were moments where I thought he was going to just get over that line. And
I'll be honest, man, if I'm in those games, I'm getting a red card in the first half. I'm not making it out of that game. And I think the refereeing, I don't know. It just feels like, I watched the first half of that Uruguay-Brazil game on the passenger side, kind of on the phone. And then I was getting tired and stuff and I passed out afterwards. But, it's like, I understand the physicality and I'm all for it. It's definitely a lot more physical. But to the point where it's designed not to let you play at all, as opposed to actually hard challenges. It's almost like trying to defeat you so that you do not even want the ball is what it feels like, the way they're defending. So it's pretty old school in that sense. But I think the refereeing does not get ahead of it at all. I mean, that game, by 15th minute, it was out of control. And if you normally, in the Euros, we're seeing this, right? Like a guy does a foul, gets a warning or might not even get a warning. But eventually, after 2-3 fouls, the ref will come and show a yellow card and he'll point to the situations that happened before and you did it there, you did it here, now you're doing this, there's a yellow. There's none of that. So it just accumulates and you can tell players are getting frustrated. A lot of those fouls are frustration fouls. They're not even called as fouls, but a lot of those tackles are frustration tackles. And the biggest thing, you played, the biggest thing that gets to you is actually a missed rough tackle. Yeah. Then, somebody else does it. By the time that you come to the fifth one, somebody's going to the hospital because, everybody kind of adds another 10-15% to that freaking rough tackle. It's definitely a hard watch. And I almost feel it's designed not to let you play at all. I understand the tournament soccer thing. You see how, certain teams Switzerland, Slovakia, Turkey, you can play in a tournament. Make sure you're not conceding first and hit on the counter. It's not like the league play. So a lot of teams are. That's why I feel like Turkey will be a good tournament teams for years to come because they do have that potential afterwards of quality in countering and stuff like that. But that's not even this in Copa America. It's not about we're going to defend and we're going to counter. It's we're not going to let you play, even if that means breaking a leg or two.
Yeah. And it's tough. And the only thing that I found enjoyable from all of that was after the game when I saw a post. It was about Endrick. He had only one completed pass the entire game, and that was the kickoff at the very beginning of the game. Yeah, that was my face exactly. He had one completed pass the entire game, and it was the kickoff. My mind was blown. I realized he disappeared on the pitch because, I think just generally he is obviously incredibly young, right? He's not as physical. He still has to grow into his body. The Uruguayans knew that. They were giving him. They were being really physical with him. But he had the ball a few times at his feet. He had some chances, and just the fact that he never made a completed pass, in my head, I was just that is the wildest thing that I took away from that game.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is a crazy stat. I did not know that. I do enjoy watching the kid. There's so much talent there. And how is anybody going to beat Real Madrid if they're getting anybody and everybody who's dangerous attacking is another question. But yeah, I feel Uruguay always plays like this, right? So this is not new. This is their kind of signature play style to kind of
for
not let you play. Physicality is their thing. But yeah, it was such a hard watch, dude. It's either fouls or fouls not given, and it was just difficult. But there's 9 players still in tournaments. They'll get 3 weeks leave, 5 weeks onto the first appeal. Really? Time flies when you're having fun. Not too much time for slot to see squad, which brings us to our boys. You were about to say something, though, weren't you?
No, the only thing I was going to say was there's a difference between being physical and being malicious. You can be physical without being dirty. And I think sometimes that's the line that gets crossed too quickly, especially when it comes to Uruguay. We've seen historically that they teeter that line pretty closely most of the time. So there's nothing wrong with being physical, but there is definitely a wrong way of being physical.
And that comes to refereeing, though, the
Partly,
referee
yeah.
has to judge that line and call it accordingly. I mean, that guy, like I said, lost control of that game 15 minutes in, and after that, there's no kind of getting it back. I was actually making fun of like a couple of games. We talk about these yellow cards. A couple of games, you had some really early yellow cards, and we would be in Discord saying like, oh, like there's definitely going to be a red card in this game and stuff like that.
Nothing else.
Sometimes those early yellow cards set everybody's record straight, and people play accordingly, and you kind of like the referee controls the game from that point on. People know what's coming and play accordingly. I just don't see that in Copa America at all until like somebody dies. Looks like the ref is not going to get involved in anything and stuff. But Sparky brings us back to some Liverpool talk. A lot of stuff happening. So let's start with this. And I have a moment of silence for our friends. We're not going to tell you about our experience on this page. But Thiago retires from following Liverpool exit. Thiago is done with soccer. When you look back, I mean, it is such a huge, huge missed opportunity to watch this guy play for Liverpool day in and day out, man. I mean, I feel like we have been robbed out of the experience and the joy of being able to watch this guy. But looking back to his time at Liverpool, because we do forget that he had some great games and he was part of that team that won the Champions League and everything. How do you see, when you look back 10 years from now, while you're pushing me around my wheelchair, how will you look back to these days and view Thiago's time at Liverpool?
I mean, exactly how you worded it, right? It just what could have been. Watching him at Barcelona, watching him at Bayern, and then when the news first came out about him coming over, it was a really weird feeling because we're like, Thiago, really? This guy? Like this doesn't seem like the archetypal type of player that is that we were after. It doesn't seem like the same kind of fit of the club, but it was so exciting because we didn't have a player like that. Because since Coutinho, we didn't really have someone like this, and it's just I think that was the most exciting part, and that was the worst part of it all, was that we just didn't see what could have been. And I think you mentioned he wasn't part of the Champions League winning side.
Wasn't he?
No, he came after.
So he was the league winning side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because he came 2020. That was, I'm pretty sure, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. But they were just moments. I think Kazi posted the video of him against United and just the absolute masterclass he had in midfield that entire game. The goal against Porto in the Champions League. I mean, there aren't more aesthetically pleasing goals you will see than that.
See, Sergi says he didn't win the league with us. So he didn't win any trophies with Liverpool? No,
well, I mean, there was the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup.
Oh, yeah, those. But
yeah, so it was just that. Okay, so maybe it was because he came in 2021, and the league was won in 1920, and Champions League was won in 1819. So yeah.
Really, I don't know why I thought he was like he won with us.
No, I mean, he was in the Champions League. I mean, he was part of the squad that lost to Real, but not part of this.
Because I remember him like having like a huge impact that season. And I think, going back to what you're saying, he has been one of those guys that's okay. Now we can see kind of like his accomplishments here. Liverpool, yes, runner up 21-22. Yeah. He won the FA Cup 21-22. Is that the game he couldn't play actually?
I thought it was the Carabao Cup that he got hurt before.
Oh, okay. And then the Community Shield kind of a thing. I think when you watch the guy, he was, I mean, that, United game is an example, but, I've always talked about this, growing up, watching like Brazilian players and stuff like that. They make certain things, Bobby, he would make certain things look so easy. You see Diaz sometimes control the ball with like weird ways. That's actually like a trick shot for most people, but he's doing it like very naturally. That's how, especially South American players do that a lot. And it's a joy to watch. And with Thiago, it just felt like he had the game slowed down. Like everything around him was a bit more slowed down, and it made things, even in the Premier League, in that fast pace, he just made things look so easy. And like the game, like he could slow down the
Effortless.
game almost.
Yeah. Yeah, just effortless is how
Yeah.
when I watch him play. It's just it's like someone has a controller that's just messing around on FIFA, just doing whatever they want to do and not worried about what the consequences are because they know that he can do it, or that he knows he can do it. I think the most upsetting thing is the fact that he's just retiring from football altogether because of all of these injuries. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say it's because of these injuries because there's a mental aspect to it, and physically he probably still could do something. I always in my head thought maybe there's a chance he had some MLS time coming where he could come on over here, play a season or two, maybe just selfishly for me, an opportunity to see him in person, whether, just like I was able to see Shaq play for the Fire. Not that it's not the same, but you still get the moment of being able to see them on the pitch. And I thought there might have been some time for him here still, but I think that's the worst part, is that it just feels like all of this has culminated into him needing to step away entirely from the game, which can't be easy, especially at 33.
I kind of respect that in that some sense, though. I mean, if Thiago said, unless his medical is so bad that he cannot play at all or play anytime soon or something like that, a team in Saudi Arabia, a team in Major League Soccer would, drop some major money his way to have him on there, because he is something to watch. You know what I mean? Like, he is a player that you would, put asses on the seats, if you will, and you would go to watch, or you would turn on the TV to see what Thiago is doing, kind of a thing. Like, you're watching like Shaq. I don't think Shaq is that kind of a guy. We tune in to watch Shaq because he played for us. But I think as a soccer fan, you would tune in to watch Thiago regardless of where he played. Just like Pirlo or somebody like that, where it's just like a joy to see them on the ball and the things they see and all that kind of stuff. So, and he was brought in, now that I think more about it, as like the, cherry on top in that sense, right? He was like, oh, he'll help us break down some defenses when we struggle and stuff like that. And he was a lot more than that, but we just could not get enough out of him. And it is a shame, because I really thought, I mean, we always give shit to Anand, but if you could get it out of the physio table, he would have been huge. And I think he would have helped us a lot more. And we probably have a couple more trophies if we were getting another, I don't know, like 20 to 30 games out of Thiago. I would say we have a couple more trophies headed our way.
20 games for him last year, and then I think the league goes differently, to be honest. I know that seems crazy, but I don't know. I do believe that would have been the case.
He could have just been stealing a living like Keita, says Sergi. Yeah, I mean, like I say, he could have gone anywhere and really been able to make really good money. I did read somewhere, I cannot remember the club now, but in terms of him like being an assistant coach and stuff like that, so maybe that's a career he wants to go into, and do that. But yeah, I mean, kudos to him. He could have, like I said, he could have milked it easily, I would think, and somebody Anand would have signed him, that's for sure. So Liverpool confirmed exit of Adrian leaving. Speaking of people who are not taking the easy routes, are you kind of shocked about this, that he did not? Because we talked about this before, of him being that character in the locker room, maybe like living the easy life. I remember John on a Wednesday morning show saying like he would want to be Adrian's career, where he's just like sitting in the background. Are you shocked that he said, you know what, I want to play, or like I want to go back home?
No, I'm not shocked. I think initially I was a bit shocked because I thought that a lot of the conversation had turned to him staying, because I know originally there were some rumors about him leaving, and then what felt like those were quickly squashed and saying, no, he's content being here. He's going to sign an extension, blah, blah, blah. He's going to be kind of that extra coach, player coach, if you will, an extra personality in the locker room. I know, him and Darwin are close, so it was good to have those kinds of guys there for each other. So I guess that part of it was a little shocking to see that, because I thought that was the direction we were going. But I think he deserves to go where he wants to go at this point, if it feels like he can still get minutes wherever he wants to go, then that makes sense. I think I was weirdly emotional watching the video that he posted about him leaving for some reason. I don't know if it was the music or what. I was like, why am I about to be crying in the club about this third choice goalkeeper at this point? He had those penalty shootouts that we'll always remember him for, the Klopp Adrian call. It's just, I think just personality wise, he was just a really likable guy. I think that's what adds to it, is that it was just someone that we enjoyed seeing. He always had a smile on his face. Like literally wherever you saw him, whenever you saw him, it looked like he always just was having the time of his life. And he was making sure the players around him were also having as good of an experience as they could have. So I appreciate, the time that he had here, but it was a little tough, but nothing that we can't get over. I think losing Hendo and Milner in one window would really hurt the locker room. So I think now losing Adrian's not going to hurt the locker room as much, because there wasn't much left to hurt, I think. Maybe a little bit, but it is what it is.
I want to actually ask you that. I mean, we're going to talk to Slot in a little bit, but do you think that's a part of it, that he knows the entire dynamic has changed, so his role might not be the same role as maybe he had with Klopp?
Sure. Yeah. And you have all of these new faces and new personalities around Schlott as well. It's not just Schlott. It's all of the trainers. It's all of the assistant coaches. It's all of this. It's all of that. So there could be some extra personalities here and there that can do that without needing to take up a roster spot potentially, or needing to pay X amount. Yeah.
I mean, Sergi says, I think it was emotional because he really bought into the Liverpool despite not being a regular, showed how much the club and fans meant to him. I think, he appreciates, and I feel like, this is where fans can be jerks, right? I think this was a guy who appreciated the club and the fans, but I always felt that the fans never really appreciated the dude.
Yeah. I kind of took him for granted, if you will. Yeah.
And, even, you look back, you look at those highlights, you can see some of the things he did. And I know he had a couple of bonehead moments too, but, every player has some bonehead moments. I actually thought he kind of got over criticized unfairly during his time at Liverpool. He was definitely look, like Mignolet, for example, right? He had a ton of errors. I mean, he was definitely not the goalie for us. I had a heart attack every time we considered a corner and stuff like that. But as a personality, I kind of appreciate players who do put the team before themselves and do not pout and everything like that, and actually say, okay, you know what? I'm going to be the backup or whatever, but I'm still going to support. I'm going to be here for my teammates and stuff like that. I think those make the good guys in the sport, as opposed to somebody, you see it, especially in American sports all the time. Like, I'm not starting, then I'm starting, I want to trade. It's gone down to college now where, I'm not starting. I'm not going to fight to get a start, or I'm not going to stick around to support others. I'm all for myself. Then I want out. I want to go somewhere where I'm appreciated and stuff like that. And I think, I kind of like players who, and when called upon, I felt like he's done the work to add.
He was serviceable. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's always going to be a drop off between your starting keeper and your backup, because if there isn't, then what are you doing? There needs to be some sort of a drop off. I know, I don't want to get in the Kelleher chat, because there's going to be so much there too that people don't want to unpack, but whatever. But the fact that, I think understanding your role is the best kind of thing you can have as a professional athlete in any capacity. If you are, I think it's easier maybe in terms of sports that have more frequent substitutions, because you can get a better crack at playing, because it's just a constant, I guess, carousel of who's coming in, who's coming out. Whereas in a sport like here, where you don't sub the keeper ever, unless there's something really serious that happens, you don't get the chance. And then, so you just have to be there always warm enough to go in, but knowing that you're cold because you haven't played in 4 months. And so while we knew that there would always be a drop off, it still in the back of my head wasn't like, oh shit, Adrian, we're going to lose every single game. It was like, oh shit, it's Adrian. Okay, we'll be fine. We'll be okay. Adrian's going to be okay. We'll be good. So we had some really good memories, especially what was it, the beginning of the title winning year, right? Allison goes down for 5-6 weeks. Adrian comes in, takes care of those 5-6 weeks. We go on to win the league. I mean, it's just, we have to. Those are some great times.
And look, I mean, it's a bit easier for him to accept that role. For example, you brought up Kelleher, but opposed to a player like Kelleher, who's maybe wants to advance the career and stuff like that, it's a bit easier, obviously, to swallow that role, especially as a goalie, like you said, who's not going to be called upon unless there's like a ridiculous emergency and he's just going to sit there. I think it would be, you have to kind of like appreciate understanding that, but it is easier as an aging goalie, I think, to accept that role. And I think the goalie thing, you look at American football and you see a lot of specialization, right? I follow the 49ers, obviously, and you watch like warm-ups, drills, practices and stuff. There's a lot of linebackers, defensive backs, offensive line, as like there's a lot of like mini groups that do their things together. In soccer, it's mostly everybody doing it except the goalies who are on the other side, kind of a thing. So it's kind of like a different ordeal where you can kind of accept and cherish that role of like being a leader and a mentor and stuff like that. But I mean, good luck to him. Like I say, I always felt like he has been unfairly criticized while he's here. People are like, oh no, Adrian and stuff like that. He was never that bad to get that reaction, because whoever is replacing Ellison was always going to be a step below anyway. So it was kind of over the top, I thought. But let's talk a little bit about this. Obviously, this happened last week, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it tonight as well. But the press conference where Arne was asked if he's going to tie his shoes like how Klopp did, if he's going to wipe his ass like how Klopp did, and various other Klopp-related questions. And the only question that was probably one that I would have asked came from like Chris Pajak, who got slammed for his formation question and stuff. But what do you make of the press conference overall?
He had a pretty funny video after that too, saying that.
I saw that.
That's great. That's nice. I was annoyed by the press conference, to be honest. Like we all will forever appreciate everything Jurgen did for the club, but it's done. It's time to move on. Like, I don't want to hear his name at these press conferences ever again, unless it's, hey, you won the league quicker than Klopp did. Like, that's the only time I'm going to want to hear his name again, because this is now Arne Schlott's era. Like, we need to, how many times did, maybe at the beginning of Klopp's era, he had questions about Rodgers or Hodgson or whatever, but it's so frustrating. And I would be frustrated if I were him as well going into these press conferences. I'm sure he gets some sort of briefing about the type of questions he might get, some sort of PR training, whatever, these, what happens. But I would just be so annoyed by the fact that, all you're asking me is stuff that, how do you want me to answer this? Besides the question you're giving me, I'm going to give you the same answer for that you expect already. I'm not going to say anything different. And there's nothing exciting or new about these answers. There's nothing that the fans, most of us don't want to hear it anymore. We want to move on. We don't want to hear anything about the comparisons and talk about how you feel about Klopp and all that. We just want you. That's just, I don't know. It was just a frustrating watch for me.
I almost felt like some of the questions were like easier for him to handle than the one that he got prepped for the club. I mean, this was we were like, let's see what he does against the questions that he's not prepared for. I thought these were freaking easier for him because you could see them coming a mile away. And my thing is, people who have been whining and crying and bitching and moaning for months, especially the media, that he never talks. This is the question you were going to ask all this goddamn time? I mean, it's just like ridiculous. And I think it's making it, people are like, oh, it's so difficult to follow Klopp and stuff like that. Yeah, you guys are not making it any easier by, bringing up his question and name every single time. And here's a little PSA. If you're in the States, heads up, because Kazi is back.
Kazi's back.
So watch your back, people, especially if you're in the Nevada area. But so as he says, Klopp's name will be brought up every game on TV. And I think, look, they're going to compare styles. They're going to compare, how it's played and stuff. That's natural, right? You kind of say, progress and stuff like that. But when you have this guy who you were kind of like meaning to ask questions, how they're like, if you had dinner with one historic person and stuff like that, like it's like you've been waiting to ask these questions. Are you going to ask him, are you going to get the city like Klopp did? I mean, really? That's their question? Or
no, I'm going to turn my back on him.
Phone call. Like, what do you want him to say? I mean, some of those questions, I don't even know the answer you're looking for. Like, what answer are you going to get and be like, oh, I did not see that coming? He's going to be like, nope, I don't care about the city. Or
the docs can go fuck themselves. Like, no, what do you? Yeah, exactly. It's silly, and I wish we could move on. And it is what it is. There's only a couple weeks before. I think maybe once we actually start to get into the preseason games specifically, we might be able to get some questions that are not pertaining to Klopp specifically. But yeah, until then, it's just, I don't know. I know, like you're saying, we waited so long for a press conference, and now I wish we waited even longer because I don't know what the point was.
Yeah, Kazi says if Liverpool don't sign the players because we spent about 40 million on Klopp's goodbye. I mean, it was like a 6-month freaking tour of him like leaving, which is well deserved and everything. But can we just freaking all together move on and help this dude as opposed to just freaking like bring up the past constantly and ask him like really. And I get it, because let's face it, any legit question that maybe we would have asked or we've talked about over here. I don't think we've been talking about this for months, right? If you want like actual genuine content, that's why you should stick up with American Scouser. I don't think we ever said, what do you guys think he felt like when he got the phone call? And like nobody cares. And I think we can all imagine what he felt when he got the phone call. But I think, any question that maybe we would have asked as our contributors over here who've been talking about this for the last few months, he kind of like sidesteps anything from transpositioning to like the 3 players futures. I think, what was the other player that, like Gakpo's positioning and stuff. He sidestepped all those, which was natural. But instead of kind of like insisting on it and asking it in a different way, which the media does, right? If they want to get like a reaction out of like a referee call or something, even if the guy says, like referee, I don't want to talk about it, somebody will ask the question, like reword it until they get something. No, they moved on really fast. They're like, oh, we don't want to talk about that? Okay, that's fine then. Now let's talk about your feelings. And, we just moved on. How about Hughes? Anything that you got out of him that's made you happy, sad, what the hell, or yet?
I was a bit confused by his accent. I didn't really know what mixture of all of that was. That was it. That's it. I just there really wasn't anything that I heard that was necessarily like, ooh, like this is what ears prick up kind of thing. I just was trying to pick up what blend of accents is all of this coming into. Why does he sound the way that he does? I was intrigued that way, but that's pretty much it. But it didn't
Scottish, but it didn't sound Scottish.
I know. That's like why. That's why I was thinking like, Scottish mixed with a bit of like London bass in there. That was the only thing for me. And
which
maybe that's why I couldn't.
Turkish who has like a bunch of mixed, jacked up accents where you can't tell where I'm from. I kind of feel for that. So kudos to him, I guess. But
same way, exactly. Yes.
I don't know. Like listening to him, he said everything you would expect him to say. And this is probably why they were like, yeah, see, this is why we didn't want to do this press conference, because it was a waste of everybody's time. We all knew there were not going to be any concrete answers coming out. I think the one thing he said, one thing they both kind of really harped on was keeping what we have. Are you buying that? Is that just talk? Also, like him saying like it's going to be until August probably and stuff like that. Is that all talk and just punting people away until August so he doesn't get to question? Or do you think those were honest answers?
I think it's easier to make those punts because of the tournaments going on right now. I think that's the best justification excuse that you could use right now is having the tournaments go on. That's why there's not a lot of business going on. Meanwhile, there are other clubs that are doing business, but that's beside the point, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just a matter of buying themselves some time. I think it's going to be a really weird beginning of the year because of both of these tournaments, because of the arrival of Slot, and because of all of this together, you just won't have the time with the squad that you would hope. Because at this point, right now, if these tournaments weren't going on, you'd have the players coming back right now, all of them. So for the most part, I would assume. So you get a much better sense of who you have, how you play them, what you're thinking. Whereas now you kind of just have to go in every day with okay, and if he was here, and if he was here,
yeah,
can't actually physically say that person is there. So if anything, I think it just buys them some time. And I am someone who said that I think what we had last year was good. It's if there are no signings whatsoever, do I think we have to hit the panic button? No, I don't think so.
I was going to ask you that. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Because I think there's enough quality and depth to get by with, let's say, knock on wood, without any injuries. But you can't play that way because that's a recipe for disaster.
And you said get by, which does not sound very endorsing.
Well, I don't expect them to challenge for the league this year. I don't expect.
Okay.
So I think that's part of it. If you are expecting this team to challenge for the league, then you need a couple extra signings right now. But if the expectations are a bit lower, that's why I think they could get by with what they had, because I think the quality's there. It's just a matter of how it's going to be used.
Looking at last year, why do you think we feel that way? That was like, and I want to talk to the boys tonight about this too. But why do we feel that way? Looking at last year, when we were close, maybe we all felt we were kind of overachieving compared to what we were doing. I mean, Sergi says, I expect us to challenge. Why would we go backwards? I mean, there are reasons, right? I mean, new management, new system, getting used to the new system and stuff like that. Maybe it's some players' roles changing and everything like that. But why do you think we're like fans are so pessimistic and without reinforcements we're doomed? Whereas really, what are we losing from last year? Really, we didn't have Matip pretty much all season, right? I understand you might get a center back for like depth or whatever, right? But what did we lose? Thiago, who never played,
right?
Adrian, who never played,
right?
So you're not really have you lost anybody that gave us minutes?
No, you haven't, and that's why I'm saying that. Worst case scenario. I'm not saying that I don't want us to sign anyone, because that's here we go. The sound bites begin. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
always edit stuff.
Worst case scenario, and that rarely happens, right? Right?
Yeah, right.
Worst case scenario. No one gets signed, and we get to January and someone comes in. That's kind of get the first 3-4 months under Schlott, see how things go, and go from there, kind of deal. Because, like you're saying, we're not losing anyone that gave us any minutes last year. Yes, we get a little bit older in some departments, but you also get a little bit more experience in other departments. So I think overall, while I would love a center back, love a defensive mid, love a right winger, honestly, there are pieces that you can bring in that will help this club compete and this squad compete. And I'm not saying that I expect us to go backwards. I'm just trying to be a bit realistic. And how many times has this kind of a change from a manager that's been with the club for so long, and you have this brand new manager come in, this new style play? How many times have you actually seen a team be able to compete for the title, actually win a title in the Premier League?
Yeah, I mean, that's
I know the sample size is small because you're comparing like Klopp to pretty much Wenger and Sir Alex, given the longevity. Yeah. And in both cases it was awful. But you can argue in both cases the clubs were left at a worse spot. But
much worse.
Yeah, I don't want to put the expectation on winning a league when I don't think that's what Slot needs to do.
Yeah. Before we get to that, if City appoint a new coach tomorrow, they will still expect to win the league. but that's okay. Like the difference there is you're kind of betting. I think it's like apples and oranges here, because that's the team that just won. So you're trying to continue, whereas we're looking for improvements on top of it. So if we are not making any changes, you're just basically solely relying on improvement from players to the squad. And going back to the Sobo thing, that's not happening. And it doesn't sound like it would be. I don't even know if it was a conversation, but let's say Gakpo is a good example, right? If you were contemplating, hey, do we move Gakpo? Which I don't think they are. Don't, let's not do a soundbite on this. But now will be the time. This will be a great freaking time because you're selling high. Whereas Szoboszlai did not really, Hungary did not have a good tournament. Szoboszlai did not have a good tournament, at least not a great tournament, maybe not a bad tournament either, but just very average and did not get any attention from anybody. So I don't think it's a good time to sell him because you're going to lose out. And I still feel like people have turned on him way too fast. People who are still riding the Nunez thing have turned on Szoboszlai, which I just do not understand at all.
It's the first year at the club. There's some players who've been there for 3-4 years that still get, wait, we can still make this work. No. And yet Szoboszlai, for whatever reason, is getting all of this shit. I really don't understand. And I'm not saying that, I think there could be a misinterpretation of what challenging for a title means. Yeah, I think third place, I think that's realistic. But third place, like 15 points behind, yeah. I don't think it's going to be third place within 4 or 5 points. I don't think it's going to be the same as it was last year.
But this is with no changes. Worst case scenario, you're saying?
Yeah. Worst case scenario, no changes, no signings. I think you can still realistically think third place, especially if Arsenal do some more business. If they get in Calafiori, I don't know. It seems like we always want the most from this club, and I understand that and I appreciate that. But I don't want to be just a blind homer and just think that that's what we deserve and what we expect. We don't know. I'd rather just set my expectations a bit lower.
See, this is what kills me. I mean, you can buy anybody for 5-10 million. I mean, give me 1 million and I'll give you efforts. How far it will get us, I'm not sure, but I will definitely give you a lot of effort. I would be running all over the place like a maniac, maybe out of the concept of the press, kind of like what some Nunez does sometimes. But I mean, this is like ridiculously unfair to think that Nunez does not look out of depth, but Szoboszlai does. I feel like ridiculous. I would think, if anything, Szoboszlai has hurt himself by setting the bar really high in the beginning. And then not basically suddenly being hyped up and not being able to live up to it, and I do admit he did talk, he did get really bad in form, but at the same time, I think we put him in a situation. You wanted Szoboszlai, who was an attacking player, to do Hendo's job in that formation, which was never going to work. You saw him sprinting back a couple of times, winning the ball, and they were like, "Oh, he can do it." No, that was not really his strength. And I think that's why he struggled a lot. And I think that's why maybe he was not used to that role in terms of being able to. You're a basketball guy, which, by the way, Mitush is a basketball guy, and I mentioned this before. But stay tuned because I will have some actual footage of our own version of Larry Bird over here, just dribbling past people who play like me, but still, just dunking over people. Not dunking, but laying up and stuff. Yeah, I will have some footage because he did comment on one of our videos under an account that I was like, who is this? And I click on it, and lo and behold, it's some home video footage of Mitush playing basketball, and it's tagged actually as highlights. So we will have to play that and have some fun with that. But anyway, going back to basketball, sometimes the best way to slow down an attacking guy is to kind of make him work on defense. And that's when now they don't have as much energy to be able to be effective on attacking side. Do you think it's something like that for Szoboszlai, and maybe a change in role? Maybe he's not as dependent on heavily defensively to cover the right hand side can be what he needs?
I think it's just always been the case of him being a 10 for every club that he played for playing for his country the way that he does. He is the talisman. He is the guy that is always at the ball at his feet. He has to create everything because the players around him are not good enough. You put him into this squad where the players around him are good enough, and he's still trying to force things as if he needs to, where if he just slows it down for himself, it can open it up for everything for everyone else. So I don't think it's for, specifically the fact that he's just not good at the tracking back and not good at what Hendo did. It's just that that's not what he's done for his entire career. And he has to kind of learn from there and adapt from there. But we don't know what it'll be like in this new system. He might have some more room for more playmaking, if you will. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I just think, we some of us gave up on him so quickly compared to just other situations. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the potential, so that potential should kind of give us going for a while. I mean, the only thing that makes me optimistic, going back to your worst case scenario, is honestly, you look at last year, and I could not tell you a lot of players who had an excellent year, especially from your starting 11. I could not tell you, oh man, we wasted his great year or something like that. Everybody was kind of like up and down and very iffy. You had a couple of players who were, I mean, when your most consistent performer was probably Elliott, I would say, right? Even though if it was like off the bench appearances for the most part and stuff, Van Dijk closer to his, best, I guess you can take as a positive, and Kwanzaa becoming better than a Konate as a center back and stuff. But you look at the front, you look at midfield, you can't really tell. You saw great things from McAllister and stuff, but I don't think you can say, oh man, these 2-3 guys had an excellent year and we wasted those. Are we going to get those again? I feel like every single player in the squad kind of played on their potential, and I think that's Slot's job to now kind of like make that happen. But Sorzi says, yeah, hopefully Slot plays to his strengths. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting what we do with him. Carvalho, I keep seeing him on the training videos and stuff like that. That's another player that would be interesting to see if he sticks around or if he's sold for cash and stuff like that. I did see today that right before we went on air, actually, that Trabzonspor from Turkey put in a bid for Nat Phillips. But
I think it was,
and we want 15 or 20.
No, I think it was like 3 or 4 million, and we won at least 8.
Is that what it was? Okay. I remember the 8 somewhere in there, but which honestly, for a Turkish team, Nat Phillips would do great. I think he only struggles with the pace over. I mean, that's his probably on downfall, but he should be in a team that's defending. If I was Nat Phillips, I would go to a team that's going to defend a lot and put my head in everywhere, for example. I don't think so. Do you think he stays real quick?
Probably not. I mean,
not after what he said and stuff.
Yeah, it seems it was very weird to see him in the training video come in, because after all that, and then him walking in, and it looks like he kind of hates to be there.
Oh, your mic went off, or maybe my mic went off. There we go.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're really loud.
Oh, really?
Sounds like there's an airplane behind you. But yeah, I mean, going back to the whole, I don't think so, especially after like what he said and stuff like that, unless he was taken out of context and exaggerated and stuff like that, and he was trying to get something else done. I think you're good over there. I see the
hello.
Yeah, it's the plane is still in the background, but it's not as bad. We're almost at the end anyway. But yeah, give us your take on, you think he sticks around or not?
I don't. I think the country connection is nice between Slot and Sepp, but I don't think that he will stick around, because he didn't even look. I'm reading into it, obviously, because it's just maybe he just looks like me going back into work after vacation. Like, I'm so tired. I don't want to do any of this, so I'm reading too much into it. But he just, I think other players genuinely looked like they wanted. Even Costas looked like he wanted to be there, and Sepp was like, "Yeah, I'm just here because I have to be."
I mean, it's a very odd place to be too, right? Like it's a bad situation to be in, where you feel like you might be just fighting an unwinnable battle. It's one thing to go there like Carvalho, I think, and say, hey, if I impress and if I do this, that, and if I follow what this guy says to a T, I might be back to being a Liverpool player. But I think with his set situation, it just feels like it's already done. So he can do whatever the hell he wants, and it's not going to matter. And it might not be right. It might not be true. So it'll be interesting to see. The country connection definitely makes it a bit more intriguing. But I think, yeah, we're kind of like taking it. If we didn't know where you saw it, you wouldn't be like, he doesn't look happy. Like it would just be like, it must be hot over there or something like that. So it is what it is. But it's Monday. So it's grooming day at the Mateusz household. Who's getting groomed today, or anybody? You just made you think like, holy shit, I didn't schedule anything.
Oh God. No, I think no grooming today. We're gonna go out and maybe play some tennis. It's nice out.
Oh, are you gonna have like a butler hold lemonade and stuff on the sideline? I assume, right? That's the only way Mateusz plays.
Actually,
there's like cold lemonade on the side.
He follows me with an umbrella back and forth on the court. Actually, so I am forever in shade. It's very nice. There is going to be no footage of that, unfortunately. So,
that's a bummer. That's a bummer. But I will be working. This is my promise for next Monday. Please get tuned in because I will try to get us some actual live footage. Before he deletes that video, let me go download it. But some actual footage of Mateusz just taking people to the hoop, if you will. There's a lot of great footage there. But I will be taking Gally to the hoop tonight. Gally and I will be on the Monday night podcast. Bickler did have family emergency, so hope all is well with him, but he's out of town, so he will not be joining us most likely, but a lot to talk about. So we'll be back 7:00 Central, 8:00 Eastern. If you have not done so, what the hell are you waiting for? Give us a follow, subscribe, a like, and tell a friend, bring them on over. We're really climbing up the numbers over here, but we really do want to hit this 1,000 mark by the end of the year. That's kind of like the goal we set for ourselves. So 807 right now, which was 800 last week. So we're moving on up, but you can only help us by bringing on a friend. Mateusz, have an excellent day with you're playing Michelle, I assume?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you had like a butler you hired to beat up.
I actually just hit the ball at him. That's me playing tennis. It's not back and forth. I just, all the frustrations out, just whack.
Why is it so hot? Why is it so humid? Yes, it is hot and humid, by the way. I don't know, you're a couple of hours away, but I'm sure it's the same temperature over there. But yes, I'll be back tonight. As always, it's great to be back, and we'll see you guys tonight. Take care.